Today's podcast is brought to you by Audible.com. Get a free audiobook download at www.audibletrial.com/TNRL. Over 100,000 titles to choose from for your iPhone, Android, Kindle, or MP3 player.
Woo! Jesus got out here.
I thought I was a good Christian.
Jesus died on a cross. I go to church every Sunday. Jesus got out here. Then I read that this Jesus died on a cross for a rotten hooker.
I thought I was a good Christian.
I go to church every Sunday.
I thought I was a good Christian.
I go to church every Sunday. I'm a very religious person.
I thought I was a good Christian. The very lie the serpent told to Eve in the Garden of Eden. Garden of Eden. Garden of Eden. The gospel of Jesus Christ. Spreads confusion and promotes lies. The gospel of Jesus Christ. Spreads confusion and promotes lies. The gospel of Jesus Christ. Spreads confusion and promotes lies. The gospel of Jesus Christ. Spreads confusion and promotes lies. The gospel of Jesus Christ. Spreads confusion.
Hey everybody, it's Monday, May 7th, This Non-Religious Life, our 50th episode. We're streaming it live right now, so hopefully you're in the room.
We're live.
With me, what's that?
I said we're live. That's scary.
We are live. It is kind of scary. All the way across the country, we have Bob.
How's it going?
And Jason.
Hello, stressed out, but here. Woo!
And if you've been with us, we had a few technical difficulties, but we're past them now, it looks like. I'm watching the live stream here. I got my computer over here. It's a mobile command center, not anywhere near as impressive as Jason's command center all the way in Virginia, but interesting nonetheless. Yeah, we got a few things to talk about. It's funny because Jason, Bob, and myself all came up with the same story to talk about today. And if you haven't heard about it, it's the North Carolina pastor who was talking about beating the gay out of kids. It seems like he was trying to be funny, and we were talking about this before the show, because he made a comment about how you need to crack that wrist and all this other stuff. It absolutely terrible. But did you guys see that he came out and apologized?
It was a
twice?
backhanded apology.
Yeah, a super backhanded apology, because he still tried to claim that homosexuality is an abomination and all that. So it's not really an apology in any sense of the word. It's like he just doesn't want to be hated as much as he was earlier. So what do you guys think about this?
This guy is reprehensible. His name is Sean Harris of Berrien Baptist Church in Fayetteville, North Carolina, and he is the example of what is wrong with religion. When we talk about like religion has a lot to answer for, this is just one more thing.
Yeah. I'd like to think that the whole anti-gay thing is going to eventually go the same way that, misogyny generally has in Christian communities where, back in the 50s there was the big deal with women going out to work and all this nonsense, mostly on biblical principles, and hopefully it'll pass. It's a generational issue, but it's still alive and well, which is a major problem.
Yeah, I know that this guy represents the worst, but we always talk about the how those religious ideas empower people to do awful things, and he even says that in his sermon when he's addressing his congregation, and he says like, you can do this, you can do these things to your kids because I give you special dispensation to do so. Those were the words he used.
I haven't read the whole thing about what he said, but I know he advocated the second a father sees his son supposedly drop his wrist to crack it, to give him a punch, to tell him to go dig ditches, because that's what guys do apparently.
Well, which is funny because before the show we found out that There's somebody in this crew that has never dug a ditch in their life. I'm not going to point fingers, but their name starts with Ken.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've never in my life dug a ditch. I think that has to do more with living in rural South Carolina than it has to do with, you know.
That seems the ideal ditch digging environment.
I don't know. I don't know. Texas has a lot of good ditches that I've dug.
You dug them?
All of them.
I've seen pictures of you when you were younger, Jason. I don't doubt you were commissioned to dig ditches as some sort of recompense for something.
What are you trying to say?
I'm saying you look like a punk.
Damn it.
Maybe because you were.
Maybe.
Yeah, it's a weird thing. This whole like punching kids because you think they're gay. He
says in his apology, he says, I did not say children should be squashed. I've never suggested children or those in the LGBT lifestyle should be beaten, punched, abused in any form or fashion. And then I'm like, yes, you did.
Yeah, he said that. he
said exactly that.
And even acted it out as he was saying it.
Yeah, in the video, he's making like punching and kicking gestures.
Yeah. You're taking it all out of context by using everything I said and video of it, you know? Yeah, when in doubt, just claim that you were taken out of context.
But I know we're having fun with this guy, and you know, it's pretty much calling him a douchebag because he's a douchebag for saying this, and it's wrong. And what the fuck? What's wrong with people? But in the interest of the show, how does this action and this tongue represent, you know, religion or necessarily his religion?
I think it demonstrates the general zeitgeist in a lot of evangelical Christianity. I mean, it's not indicative of all of it. You know, I grew up in a fairly mainstream church, you know, Episcopalian, and they ordain women and, you know, gay clergy members. I believe the primate of the Episcopal Church is currently a woman who may or may not be gay. I know there's a few gay bishops. But when you get into sort of these more far right, you know, Protestant evangelical communities, you get a lot of really, really anti-gay sentiment, and it's actually kind of terrifying.
Well, you know, when from the article which we got from Jezebel.com, when he's making these statements and saying these things from the article, they say the congregation applauded.
Yeah.
Not people were horrified and walked out. They applauded what he had to say. So obviously he represents some portion of the I don't know, constituency or congregation or some portion of that evangelical population, and they approve of what he says, and they may go home and do those things.
Well, there's something really weird, and I've experienced this. There's something really weird. Anytime you put a religious value on someone, they become almost magical. And I say that, but I had this experience the other day at work. There's a coworker. He's an official monk. He's went through the proceedings and everything. He's an official Buddhist monk, and we work together. And we got a shipment of organic greens in the other day, and they were covered, I mean, actually infested with aphids. And the other manager told him, just run them under the water and, you know, just get rid of them. And he said, I've taken a vow not to do such things. And the people there who were standing around him, one girl even went up and touched him on the shoulder and went, oh. And I went, wait a fucking minute. We share the same beliefs, me and this monk. And I would not run water under there because I'm vegan. But if I said I can't do that because I'm vegan, you would say, you're fucking crazy. There's something wrong with you. What is wrong? Just because he put a religious ideology, you know, an idea behind it, he became saint-like. And I think maybe the people in the church, just because the preacher or the pastor or whoever it is saying it because he has a background of being religious, or is in that bubble, he can do no wrong, and everything that he does is saintly or holy or whatever word you want to put on it. So maybe they're applauding that because, and I think that maybe is the extent of how dangerous it is for this douchebag to be saying, if your son's gay, crack his wrist or whatever. And I think in the bigger picture, that's more is way more dangerous than just this one douchebag saying it.
Maybe that might be a an indication of the the zeitgeist, the spirit of the times, the way people are thinking about things. And it is interesting that if you uphold a personal ethical belief, that's not as good as upholding someone else's holy belief or someone else's sacred belief. Yeah. That's strange. That's interesting. I would guess take the pragmatist viewpoint, like they're the same. Yeah. So I don't know.
Yeah, it depends on how you value the idea over the reason for the idea. I think it comes to us from antiquity, really. In ancient Rome, religions were judged by how old they were. That's how you figured the validity of a religion. The reason why the Christians had such a problem getting a hold for the first couple centuries was that their religion was viewed as new. In fact, the only churches that were really given any credibility for the first 100 or so years were the Jewish Christians, because they had that link to an older religion. So the things that they said held more validity than, say, the Gentile supersessionists like the Gnostics or the Marcionites. And it's exactly that. It's like if you can attach a religion, or especially a really old one, to something, your philosophy becomes more valid. So if you're saying the same thing as someone who's religious, but say like you said, you say it because you're vegan or you're some other newer philosophy. When we're talking about philosophies, it becomes less valid than someone who says the same thing, but they couch it in some sort of a biblical term.
Yeah, it's very bizarre.
Yeah. Somebody sent me a this handy, and it was like this internet meme that I thought was very funny, and it's like signage, and it says unless your church not only endorses but also actively promotes the following list of things, fuck right off. And it was 7 things, and it was equal rights for all members of the LGBT community, LGBT marriage rights, the theory of evolution, promotion of scientific progress, women's right to choice in all aspects and all avenues for their reproductive health, feminism, and the fact that your personal brand of belief, superstition may not be correct. Where's that church?
There aren't many, that's for sure.
I would like that to be the representative sample.
Yeah. There are a few that are close. Unitarian Universalist is probably the closest.
They're not a real church.
Probably. Like I said earlier, the Episcopalian Church, with probably the exception of the reproductive rights, is probably dead on there. But I would probably lengthen that list a bit to include a few other things.
What does the chat room think about this? Keep going.
I'd like the church to end a sermon with thanks for coming, guys, and just remember, we might not be right.
Yeah. I think that sounds like a Unitarian Universalist concept there, where you go there. I've been to a few Unitarian Universalist. I don't know what it's called, sermons. And they sort of read from a whole slew of different holy books. 1 week it's Buddhist literature, the next week it's a Catholic liturgy. A week after that it's something else. But by and large, a lot of their congregation are, agnostics.
Yeah.
So, people who don't know, people who aren't going to grasp onto that knowledge, I think it's a philosophically safe position to be in.
Well, we have said before that it's the belonging and not the believing that gets the benefits.
Yeah, absolutely. There have been numerous studies that show that the social cohesion from a religion has social benefits. I mean, that kind of research goes all the way back to the 1800s when you have Emil Durkheim in his On Suicide. He looked at Catholics and Protestants, and say what you will about his methods or any findings where you could have to measure the fact that suicide is a social taboo in Catholicism. Suicide rates in Catholic communities were lower than they were in Protestant communities, probably because Catholics tend to be a more socially cohesive group than Protestants.
Well, there you go. All right, well, I'd like to end that and just say that, Pastor Sean Harris of Fayetteville, North Carolina, you're a jerk.
Yeah, definitely a douchebag. I'm not going to pull any punches. He's kind of an ass.
Well, you got me thinking about when you were talking about the other denominations, about like the Catholicism versus Protestantism. I wanted to touch on the news story that I heard it somewhere and I forget where it was. I guess we should look it up. But about the Catholic Church bringing back the sale of indulgences. And why isn't the Protestant Church like flipping their lid over this?
Yeah, you sent me this last week, and I couldn't believe it. And I looked it up, and apparently they've been selling it for a while. Like, they brought it back. And it's weird because it's one of those things that only really old Catholics would remember, or people who study religion, in particular the Protestant Reformation.
Well, just in case somebody doesn't know, why don't you explain what the sale of indulgences is and what that's all about?
Yeah, indulgences...
Because I think that makes a funny story, too, anyway.
It does make a funny story. The Catholic Church generally has believed for a long time that even if you die and you're going to go to heaven, most people have to spend an amount of time in purgatory, where the fires of purgatory sort of burn off all of the sin from your soul. So it's called the cleansing fires of purgatory, and it's supposed to be fucking awful. But people who had someone who recently died in their family could pay money to the church to sort of shorten the stay in purgatory for their family members. You could buy it in certain denominations of however many months or years. And it was one of Martin Luther's main points in his 95 Theses, where he really didn't like the Catholic Church abusing this. They would take money from the poor and say, "Oh yeah, don't worry about it. Your family member will get out of purgatory, 10 years early now."
Well, one of the things I had read about the sale of indulgences is that the Catholic Church rationalized that they could, when they were selling indulgences, they were selling the excess good of their beatified saints. Like, that's where the excess good comes from.
Yeah, it's interesting. They took saintliness and commodified it. They made a free market of saintly goodness. It's like they have the saint factory. You can go get your divinity degree, live the life really, really holy, and when you die, be beatified, and become a saint, and then you start producing saintly goodness that the church can sell.
Which is nice.
It's nice. I'm glad that they're selling it.
Yeah, I hear that's a good racket to be in.
Yeah. They apparently invented capitalism several hundred years early. It's funny. My interest in the whole bringing back indulgences is that for some time now, the Catholics have abandoned the idea of purgatory. I mean, if there's no purgatory to reside in, why do you need indulgences to get yourself out of purgatory early?
Yeah, I don't know. That was my first thought with bringing back the sale of indulgences with no purgatory. Isn't that going to be a problem?
Yeah,
Apparently not. As long as the money's good.
Yeah, yeah. I can only imagine that Pope hats are expensive. So maybe they took out a mortgage on the Vatican to pay their legal bills. You got to pay that back somehow.
Yeah, priestly sex scandals get expensive.
Yeah, no doubt. It's the Catholic Church is a funny thing. They've backtracked a lot theologically. It used to be that they were the ones that were more conservative and saying, the Bible says this, and that's the cosmology, and that's just how things work. If you want to advocate heliocentrism, then, GTFO. They apologized to Galileo in the 90s.
Yeah.
Well,
there was also that article about the one cardinal that was saying Adam and Eve didn't exist, and I sort of glossed over that because I thought that was the stance of the church for a long time now, that the Genesis story is just metaphorical. It's not a factual retelling of the events.
Yeah, there have been a couple popes now that have come out and said that the theory of evolution is a better explanation than the story of Genesis.
Really?
Yeah.
I like the way you put that, though. Yeah, the theory of evolution really is a better explanation than the story that two people, one made from the rib of the other, and a talking snake.
Yeah. Well, depending on which story you pick, Genesis 1 or Genesis 2. There's two stories of creation in there. And a lot of people don't even realize that. Even people who read the Bible don't realize it. They have two stories of creation that are mutually exclusive. You have the 7-day creation, and you have the Adam and Eve story.
Well, I mean that's what I mean about the Catholic Church. It seems like they're maintaining this sort of progressive attitude, and that when they say things like, okay, Genesis is this is mythology, and evolution is true, and the Earth isn't the center of the universe, and then they take a step back 500 years by bringing back the sale of indulgences.
Yeah. It doesn't surprise me with the current Pope.
Emperor Palpatine.
Emperor Palpatine. Ratzinger has always been fairly conservative in his views. He wrote, when he was a cardinal, he wrote a paper defending the church's stance against Galileo. And it's really weird. I read it years ago. And he sort of took the stance of, according to relativity, you can't technically really tell which body is orbiting the other. It's from a relativistic point of view. The sun very well could be orbiting the Earth, and everything else orbiting the sun. Everything could be orbiting Pluto. It's just what's more likely. And so he defended the geocentric worldview there. And he was actually going to speak at some technical university in, I want to say it was in Rome, and the students protested because of the paper. It's...
Well, I think having Emperor Palpatine as the Pope that's a step back too. But that's just my opinion of the matter.
For all my It's I see Matt was talking about Hebrew parallelism. I wonder if he's talking about when I said there's two stories in Genesis.
That's in the chat room. If you want to add any questions or comments.
Yeah, he said yes.
What did he say?
He's talking about Hebrew parallelism. I don't think it's a matter of Hebrew parallelism. How can you say this man looks like Emperor Palpatine? I need to open this picture. Oh yeah, he does. Just throw a black cloak on him and just have some lightning bolts shooting out of his hands. Man, he looks like Emperor Palpatine.
Oh my God, Ratzinger looks just like Emperor Palpatine.
He does. It's kind of creepy. I don't think it's a matter of Hebrew parallelism for Matt. I think it's a matter of two stories that different groups had. You have the pre-exilic story in Judah, which was really common. You have the priestly story, which ends up borrowing heavily from the Babylonians and their story of Enuma Elish. And both, at the time it was being codified, people like Ezra knew that these stories were just simply two conflicting stories that both people really, really enjoyed, and there's no way they could get away with excluding one of them. If you missed it, Matt, we'll rebroadcast and there won't be any advertisement. Sorry about that. To get back to the Catholics, they've moved away from Genesis for a while, and I'm interested in this position because I feel like it undermines Christianity intrinsically. Because without Adam and Eve, there's no fall, there's no original sin, which means there's no requirement for a redeeming sacrifice. And I think it's an interesting theological position to try and get around, and I feel like the Catholic Church doesn't like to talk about it. What do you think, Bob?
I don't know. There was a time when I thought that the Catholic Church was moving in a progressive direction, and I just think now they've completely done a 180, and it's because of the new Pope.
Yeah, that's possible.
And he is really conservative. And now I'm seeing all these things about I don't know, I don't think people realize how much money that the Catholic Church has, and that they actually take steps to cover it up. Like there were all these pictures about Ratzinger, just when he was being when they were deciding that he was the Pope. It was pictures of him, and he has he's walking around in $5,000 shoes, and he's wearing expensive watches. And then there was a thing on it had some woman who was a nun high up in the Vatican, and they had photoshopped her expensive watch out of the picture because they didn't want anybody to know that she had this expensive watch. I don't know, man. I'm starting to think, and now there's this idea, they're bringing back the sale of indulgences. It's hard to think of the Catholic Church as more than just a money grab.
Yeah, so much for classical Christian monasticism, huh?
Really,
monastics used to be ascetics who would live in the desert and sort of emulate that the temptation of Christ in the desert. When you find at the beginning of the Gospels, and now you have like I said, the Pope wearing super expensive watches, and how much do you think the papal palace costs to maintain? The Vatican itself is its own independent state within Rome. It's one of the smallest countries in the world, but it is its own country.
Yeah, it's got to be inordinately expensive.
They don't even
appearances are hard to maintain, I guess. It's a weird thing because I like the memes that float around where it's like, one person is, you have a picture of like the starving African child next to the Pope with his gigantic golden cross,
The
Or
Matt in
Sarah
the
Silverman sell the Vatican, feed the poor.
Matt in the chat room says, but there's no sex for the Pope. So
Well,
So give and take.
yeah, no sex with girls.
Yeah, that you know of.
That you know of.
he has a prostitute ring in his own country.
Yeah,
Well, that would be. I don't know. I mean,
I was
that's
kidding.
making accusations, and you don't know. But whatever. What does that buy you? What does abstinence buy you? I don't think anything.
Well, apparently their budget is, according to the King guy in the chat room, is $355.5 million in 2008, and their expenditures were $356.8 million in 2008.
Yeah, maybe
I
that's
don't
why
want to
they're
be
selling
conspiratorial
pulses.
about it, but I don't believe that for a second.
Yeah,
Not even for a minute. In fact, and it's not that unless the source of that information is some kind of like independent auditing firm that's been like, checked and rechecked by another independent auditing firm, I would not believe anything self-reported by the Vatican. Now, I would trust that information as far as nowhere.
Hey, King Guide, where's your source for that, just so we can have it? He
The
said
source of the CIA.
he said the source is the CIA.
Well,
Thank
I
you.
It's interesting. I think he's probably using that means it's the countries. He's probably using the World Fact Book, which is fairly reliable, actually.
He put a link up in the
World
chat
Fact
room.
Book. He just posted the
Yeah.
link. So anyone who's in the chat room can check it out. That is actually fairly useful. That's not the expenditures for the Catholic Church so much as the expenditures for the country, the Vatican itself.
Right, and also like you have to ask that question, like, well, what's if what's under the umbrella of that figure? Because a few years ago there was, they were talking about, and is that the Vatican itself, or is that each individual diocese that are around the country? Because I was reading stories about,
Well, he says Vatican City is what
Specifically,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, what about the dioceses around the country that are going broke because they're paying out settlements for sex scandals?
Yeah. And that's the thing, like, is a church technically an embassy of the Vatican? It's not technically, and neither are dioceses specifically parts of the Vatican itself. So any money they rake in, you have some going broke, some not. It's a really convoluted scheme for money. And the whole Catholic hierarchy, because it is a hierarchy, is really, really strange.
Yeah.
It's a big money grub.
Yeah, well, I mean, like I said, they at one point I would have lauded them for their progressive stance on things, but now bringing back the sale of indulgences is stepping back into the dark ages, and their stance on these women's reproductive rights. That's
Matt
a
just
step in
mentioned
the
it.
wrong direction too.
Matt
Matt's
just brought up
comment.
Catholic charities and hospitals, huh? Don't talk about birth control. It's
Yeah.
funny.
I mean,
Even-
there is a
even
lot of
when,
money that goes in. I mean, he does make a point, even with the joke aside, he does make the point that, they do put a lot of money into hospitals and other Catholic charities.
They do, but you have to weigh that against damage done by telling people in Africa that condoms result in AIDS.
That is,
That's what weighs more in the grand scheme of things. What is the bigger picture, and I think it's a big scale.
Well, since we're talking about money, I think we should take a break real quick and generate some revenue for this show.
Oh yeah, right.
So.
Our speaking of the Catholic Church, so our book selection for the week was we were bouncing around. I think what we landed on was another Hitchens book, and this is the I guess the one of the books Christopher Hitchens is more noted for, and it's his book is titled "God is Not Great," and then the subtitle is "Why Religion Poisons Everything." And it's available on audibletrial.com. You can download it for free. I believe this one /TNRL.
It's audibletrial.com.
audibletrial.com/TNRL. Sign up for free for a free 1-month membership, and then when you do so, you get a free audiobook download. And this one's available. It's read by Hitchens himself. I've listened to part of it. I haven't listened to the whole thing yet, but it's really cool to hear Hitchens speak, and he has an axe to grind with the Catholic Church, in particular Mother Teresa and the beatification of saints. He has a problem with it, and the bit that I listened to just the other day, I was riding in a car with somebody, and they were talking about like how saints have to have a certain number of miracles, and they were in the Calcutta and at Mother Teresa's hospital, and they were filming the room of the dying where all these people would die. And his stance on Mother Teresa is that she just lets them die. She was soul gathering, was what you call it, Ken?
Yeah.
And they were using some new film by Kodak. There was like some new film that they hadn't tested it out yet, but they figured, well, we'll just put it in the camera and see what happens. And when they filmed the inside, even though there was low light, everything had sort of like this glow to it. And he saw it, and he was like, wow, way to go, Kodak. And other people saw it and thought, it's divine light. And he was like, damn it, I didn't even get to say way to go, Kodak. But anyway, it's funny. The whole book is funny stories like that. It's very good. God is Not Great by Christopher Hitchens.
And you can get it at audibletrial.com/TNRL.
The story's much better when he tells it.
That's a pretty good story.
His whole deal with Mother Teresa is really interesting because he actually got to play devil's advocate at her. Which for anyone who doesn't know, when someone's going to be a saint, what you do is you have to have a certain number of miracles attributed to you, and then the whole thing is brought up, and it's very litigious. But someone has the position that is known as devil's advocate, and they essentially argue against making that person a saint. I think it's a really cool title, and Hitchens
put that on your resume.
To hold that.
I was devil's advocate for the beatification of Mother Teresa.
It doesn't mean just being a dick.
Right, yeah.
Interesting. So we've covered Catholics. So we've covered beating the gay out of your kids. Jason sent me a video this morning, and I watched it before I even got out of bed because I just saw you texted me about it, didn't you?
No, I sent a text saying I've sent you a video. You need to watch it before the show, and it was me and Spandex. No, I'm just kidding. No.
It was what? It was not.
He missed it.
It was Jason in a Teletubby suit.
Yes, going. Woo!
Yeah.
No, it's actually a documentary. I don't know how new it is. It's called "On a Pale Horse." What? Or something Pale Horse. I can't remember. And it's narrated and hosted by Charlie Daniels.
Well, that's a pedigree right there.
Well, my favorite moment in the whole documentary is when it starts off and Charlie goes, he looks at the camera and goes, "I'm Charlie Daniels. There's something wrong with this country, and I'm going to tell you about it." And from then on, I was just like, "Oh, this movie rocks!" Because it's the craziest fucking group of people you'll ever meet in your life.
I tried to look up some of the people that were listed there, and it's so many, and they go so fast that I didn't get very far before we we had to come in and record. So I have to look into that some more. But it is all like the name of the movie is On a Pale Horse.
Yes.
And it's a I don't know, I guess a Christian documentary about end times and where the country's heading and
guns.
And
One
guns,
world
yeah.
government. One world government. It talks about that.
Yeah. I want to put something.
Right, and they're espousing that idea of a global government.
Yeah. What I want to do, and if it's all right for the rest of the crew of This Non-Religious Life, I want to host an official screening of this film for the atheists of the community. And we'll do a show from it. We'll do the screening.
Yeah, we could.
And then we'll do a Q&A afterwards. Do a
that.
show and get people's reaction on it. I think it'd be great.
Yeah.
And if you haven't seen it,
good.
I'll put up the trailer to it on This Non-Religious Life Facebook, so you can check it out, and we'll put it in the show notes as well, so you can check it out. And if you're interested, let us know. Let us know if you're interested. And if you want to come and do the screening, we'll set it up, and we'll do it. Because it'd be fun.
You know, that'd be crazy if we could get enough interest in it. We could get the Tidewater Atheist group in, and we could actually do stuff at the Narrow Cinema.
Oh yeah.
I mean, like there's that possibility. I don't know. That's.
Well, we
this
can
is
talk about
pie
it
in the sky
off the
stuff,
camera.
but,
But yeah.
wow, that would be fun.
Yeah.
Um,
I think it's funny we made Matt go ugh talking about the documentary.
Well, he said you could probably get some theologians to come and respond to the material, which I think would be great.
Awesome.
I think that's a great idea. Hey, Matt,
Yeah.
why don't we team up with you and let's make this happen? This Non-Religious Life and Matt, the theologian person.
Yeah, I mean, even if we just screen it sort of online with a live chat room. That
Well, we
would be
can't
better
do it
than
online
nothing.
because that's copyright and that's a whole different ball game there. Because we could do it like this. We could do it like this and never rebroadcast it, and we could get away with it because it would be so quick.
Right.
But that would defeat the purpose of doing it.
Yeah.
So anyway, but yeah,
This is game.
he's game. All right. Well,
Awesome.
That movie seemed like a bunch of crazy people.
I-
But the jury's still out on who's crazy and who's not. But Charlie Daniels falls into my category of kind of crazy.
it's gonna be awesome. I'm down with it.
Do you listen to Penn Sunday School sometimes?
Sometimes,
don't you?
yeah.
Did you see the comment that Penn made? And I sometimes I disagree with him, but sometimes he has the right idea about things. And he was talking about, he was basically kind of saying the same things about like, oh, this country's heading for this, and this is bad, and this is bad. But then he sort of puts things in perspective where he says like, really, I could say this country sucks. And the very fact that I can say that this country sucks or I don't like President
I've heard
Obama,
that, yeah.
that means this country's not so bad and President Obama's not so bad at all. Like that, and I think that's an interesting perspective on it. Like the very fact that you can make a video that says like the country's headed for disaster might mean that it's not exactly headed for disaster.
Until it's banned, and then you don't know.
Right, until you ban that video, right. That you can say the country sucks means the country's not that bad.
But I think that goes. That's a weak argument.
I agree, it is, but
I mean, the perspective is like, yes, if you're comparing it to countries that you can't say anything about
Did
the
you see
government,
that there was-
yes, that in that comparison, it is not going to that dark place. But if you compare it to the liberties that we had 10 years ago that have been restrained or tightened down on, then yeah, maybe it is going to that dark place, but just in a different realm.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of arguments to be made one way or the other, but
Yeah.
Did you see there was an article about a guy in Indonesia that made a post on his status update on his fucking Facebook page. He said, "There is no God." He's in jail.
Really? Oh, well, yes, I actually did read this. Yeah.
He was jailed for that.
Yeah.
That's horrible. That
well, no,
country sucks.
he's not only been jailed for it. He's up for possible stoning.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
That's horrible. That country sucks.
And if you want to compare, yes, we are a better country. That our government, our country's not better. Our government is a little bit better than their government.
I would say compared to that, a lot better. But is there room for improvement? Absolutely.
I don't know. But this seems like a topic for the new architects.
Yeah, it does seem like a new architect thing.
We're on a different show at the moment.
Although
Don't mix the shows.
Sorry.
Yeah. I know I want to talk about the Avengers so badly.
But I got Battleship Mints.
Oh, good for you.
I got promotional Battleship Mints. And that's a completely different podcast, too. Anyway, moving on.
Yeah.
Moving on.
We're coming up. We're coming up right on the hour mark. So just to close a few things up, I really want to see this movie. I really do. Apocalypticism, and it seems like it always comes back to apocalypticism with the show.
We're doomsdayist.
That's why we started.
That's
year
why
ago.
we'll end.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, wasn't thinking about Catholicism again and apocalypticism, and even I was reading something that Matt wrote about how the policy of celibacy among priests was based on apocalyptic expectations. It was rooted in apocalyptic expectations, like don't take a wife, don't have sex because the world's going to end any day now.
Yeah, it was the whole point was to remain as pure as possible for the end days. It's funny because when you go back into the Bible, you can see that there are layers of writing where things are eventually pushed back further and further. Jesus says, this generation shall not pass away, until, whatever. And then, eventually they realize that, hey, just about everyone's dead. So maybe it just means Bob over there who was around at that time, So, it's just until the entire generation is done. It'll happen before that. And then, old rickety Bob dies and they're like, maybe they just mean this age. And they sort of like start backtracking because they have to. And it's been 2,000 years and a no-show. So it's the ultimate backtrack game. It really is.
Yeah. Have you listened to not to plug someone else's podcast, but it is Dr. Robert M. Price. Have you listened to his new podcast, The Human Bible?
Yeah, actually, I devoured all 5 episodes of that in
he's pretty good. But I like the
days.
segment he has called the what is it, the prophecy scorecard or something like that.
Prophecy scorecard. Yeah,
that's pretty funny.
That's a whole other game. Gauging prophecy, because it tends so often that you can date when a prophecy is made by when it starts to go wrong. Like you can date the book of Daniel to the time of Antiochus just before he dies, because it makes a prediction about how he's going to die, and it's wrong.
Yeah, I do like. I think it's funny about the prophecy scorecard because either things are retro-dicted or they're just wrong.
Yeah, in the book of Daniel, it says that Antiochus Epiphanes, and let me just say, you always know you're going to have trouble with someone when they name themselves Epiphanes, which means manifest God. It says that he's going to die fighting the Ptolemaic Empire, which is Egypt at the time, and he would die in the shadow of Mount Zion. But he didn't. He actually died of a disease at the opposite end of his empire, near the Parthian border. But you can tell everything else before that is right. It's just it gets that last detail wrong, so you know that it was written sometime shortly before his death, and the writer just sort of got ahead of himself. He thought he was drawing the right conclusions.
Yay, prophecy.
Yeah. I like that show. He has a good show. It's a good CFI. It's CFI, right? That does it?
Yeah, it is CFI.
Yeah. I like the way it's set up with the up to speed segment and all that. I think it's good.
It's good for me.
Yeah.
I'm a big dummy.
That's okay. If I have a Tumblr post coming up for anyone who who is interested, and you get to learn a few Latin terms that critical scholars use, like lectio difficilio portior. It's a good Latin lesson.
That sounds great. I can't wait.
I even explained what it means.
Damn.
I think we're about to that time, so let's start to wrap it up. Bob, do you have any closing remarks?
I do not. Other than thanks for coming and hanging out with us for this hour. I think next time when we do this live, next time I'll have because right now I'm like sitting on the couch. I can't see the computer screen that well. Next time I'll anticipate what we're gonna do and have some way to see the comments to respond a little better.
You can do the laptop.
Yeah,
but real quick, the King guy in the chat room says it means the pen is on the table. But anyway,
His Latin phrase.
yeah.
Oh, nice.
So anyway, that's enough silence. Let's wrap it up.
Yeah. Okay. I wasn't sure who was going to talk first. So if you enjoyed the show, thanks to people who were in the chat room. The King guy, I don't know who that is, but
Thanks for
awesome.
hanging.
Thank you for showing up.
Yes.
I know who the King guy is. I thought you
You know who
said
it is?
King.
Oh.
No, King guy. That's Patrick.
Hey, Patrick.
Oh. All right. Well, hey, what's up?
Word.
For Matt for coming in, and he says he doesn't know who he is either. That's a philosophical discussion for another day. Thanks for Matt for coming in and sharing with us.
I think it's pretty good.
I see we have some other too, so
yeah. I just want to say our 50th episode, our first live broadcast for the show, and it went
50.
It went very well, and I think we're going to continue to do
as good as expected.
No, I mean once the show got going, we didn't have any issues, and I think we're going to start doing this every week now.
Sure.
So if you're listening to this on the rebroadcast, we'll have links up on zombiepopcorn.com where you can find the live broadcast when we broadcast. Back to you, Ken.
Yeah. I think it went great. I'm excited about it. Kind of iron out the details here and there and figuring out all the little things. But I think this went amazingly.
Happy anniversary.
But to close it up, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, we have about a billion ways to get a hold of us. You can call the Zombie Popcorn hotline, which is 757-337-2195. Leave a voicemail. We'll listen to it. We'll address it later in the show. You can email us, nonreligious@zombiepopcorn.com. Hopefully Jason puts that on the screen in the edit.
He won't.
No, I won't.
More work than it's worth. You can like us on Facebook, facebook.com/thisnonreligiouslife. Put us in your circles on Google+. You can listen to us on Stitcher Radio without having to download the episodes or anything like that. No syncing or whatever. iTunes. You can go rate us and leave feedback there. God, there's so many.
So much.
Just go to zombiepopcorn.com, sign up for the newsletter, little things at the top of the screen. Just click there, sign up. You'll get information about this show, all the other shows that we do.
All the content.
Special giveaways.
Which we have a
there's
very
giveaway
special
coming up.
giveaway coming up on the next newsletter. Ken will
Yeah,
like this
so
one.
if you're following this show and you're interested in what we have to say, then definitely sign up because you'll get information about that giveaway, which will be pretty awesome, I have to say. And with that, I think we're done. Don't forget to check out audibletrial.com/TNRL. Sign up for the free, the free membership, one month trial or whatever it is. You get a free download with that trial. So do that. Get a free audiobook. There's no reason not to. Check it out. And with that, we will see you next week.
Later.
Bye.
Just got out here.
I thought I was a good Christian.
Jesus died on a cross for a rotten hooker.
I thought I was a good Christian.
I go to church every Sunday.
I thought I was a good Christian.
I go to church every Sunday. I'm a very religious person.
I thought I was a good Christian.
The very lies the serpent told to Eve in the Garden of Eden. Garden of Eden. Garden of Eden. The gospel of Jesus Christ. Spread confusion and promote lies. The gospel of Jesus Christ. Spread confusion and promote lies. The gospel of Jesus Christ. Spread confusion and promote lies. The gospel of